Welcome back to this Flame game development series. For this video, we'll be taking this game from the blank project which we did last time and adding animated characters like what you see on the screen. If you are just joining this video, I covered some of the basics in the previous one, so feel free to check them out. So guys, that's all with the introduction. Let's start writing some code. Before we start writing code, let's get some of the images we would use for the game. I'll be getting my assets from CraftPix. All the assets I'll be using in this tutorial are free, and you can get them by going to the website. The link is in the description, or you can download the starter file for this series. Here you will get all the assets as well as some files which will be important later in the videos. Before we start adding images, let's take a look at how Flame searches for assets. If we go to the Flame documentation, we see that all assets should be added to the assets folder and then a subfolder for audio, images and tiles. Going back to our code editor, we add our folders and also put our images. I just need the complete image. The other images are used for parallax effect background. This is where the images at the back move slower than those closer to give the game some depth, but I will not be doing that in this video. After adding all the background images, the next thing we need to do is to add the paths to the pubspec.yaml file. Let's run the game. To remove the rectangle from our previous project, I'll just comment out the add function and it is removed from the game. Adding assets requires two steps in Flame. One is loading it to the game's cache. For this, we would use the name of the image. And the second is just adding the asset. In this case, we have an image which is referred to as a sprite. The sprite component is used to load a sprite image, and it accepts size, position, and anchor for placement of the component. You have the option to either pass the image directly or get the image from cache using the same name you used to load the image. To access another image, you just need to change the name to the same name you used to save the file. And don't forget to load the image before trying to access it. You can load multiple images at once using load all. To clean our project, I'll create a class called loadSpriteService and use a function called background to load all the backgrounds. Now calling this function loads all the background images. For most games, we usually have characters moving and animations playing on the screen. This is also achieved using sprites. But first, we need to find the right images. Going back to CraftPix, I found some characters to use for our fighters. The link to this will be in the description. You can download it from the website or use the assets which are already in the starter project, which are also linked in the description. I recommend using the starter project because I renamed some of the assets so that they are easier to manage. Next, you add the images to the project. Once you add the images, you will notice that each of the images has a row of pictures showing how each movement progresses. Each of these images will form the frames for the action on the animation. We just need to add the paths to the pubspec.yaml file. I'll copy these and paste them here. You can find the pubspec.yaml file also in the starter project. We can go back to our game class and add the image. On the screen, we see all the images showing at once. This is because we are currently using a sprite component which shows one image. We will need to split each of these images. And to get the correct position of each of these images, I will be making use of another service. This is called SpriteCow. This is a free website that allows you to get the position of objects in an image. We would have to create an animation, and this is created using the sprite animation. It requires a list of sprites. This is where the SpriteCow comes in. Using this website, we can get the position and size of all the images. I just want to mention that there are other ways to get the sprite animation, especially if they are evenly spaced. But I am not sure all the images I collected are spaced evenly, so I'm using this method. When picking the values, you should ignore the negative values that are given on SpriteCow. After adding all the values, we'll place the sprite animation in a sprite animation component. This creates the animated layer. Looking at the animation, we see that the component is boxing the sprite into a fixed size. But the sprite doesn't fit this size in some frames. So we have to remove this fixed size and allow the component use the size coming from the sprite. Now it looks fine, but our player is looking small. To increase the size of our player without using the size variable, we use the scale. After adding the scale, it looks better now, but the player doesn't stay in place as it should. This is because the component is anchored to the center. Looking at this image, we will notice that the fixed part of this image is the feet, which is at the bottom. Since the flame that is shot by the user moves forward, the anchor should be at the left. So placing it at the bottom left fixes the animation in place. The last issue here is that the animation seems to be glitching on one of its frames. If you notice this in any of your game, it is probably from the positioning of one of your sprites. After looking through the sprites, I noticed that one of them is negative, and after changing it, it fixed the issue. The animation looks better now. In this video, we're able to learn about sprites. You will notice we use some of the basic variables like scale and anchoring that was discussed in the first video. We'll keep meeting these basics, so it is nice to understand how they work beforehand. If you need a refresher, you can always go back and rewatch the first video. So guys, this is it for now. We would clean up our code and make the player perform other actions in our next video. So until then, keep coding. And if you haven't subscribed, I really appreciate it if you do. You can also like the video if you feel it's worth the like. So see you later.